everybody. Welcome to this episode of In the Future, episode 7. And actually, we just finished ordering pie. So we're ordering pie on Uber Eats. And you're probably wondering, why are you telling me this? Why is this even the first thing you guys are doing on a Tuesday night at 10:22 p.m.? You're telling us about pie. We're supposed to be talking about the future. Well, it's tied in together. The topic today is really about how Uber Eats or any delivery app is terrible for humans because of the manufacturing anxiety of allowing you to track your food. For example, we ordered our pie. How long ago was it now?
35 minutes ago.
35 minutes ago. And we're checking it every 10 minutes. We're always like, where's that pie? Where's that pie? Like, why? In a world where we didn't have that prior, we didn't have that level of anxiety, that instant gratification, that instant need to have things immediately in our grasp. Almost like spoils. What do you think?
It sounds like you really need your pie. So the instant gratification piece is what it really is, right? It's like we've been trained with all these apps. You don't have to. Let's just focus on food, right? Before, it used to be 3 options for delivery. It was pizza, Chinese food. Give me a third one. Can't even think of one.
Wow, yeah, you're right.
Right, so
hold on. Yeah, I guess sushi wasn't a big thing back then either. Yeah, pizza,
pizza or Chinese
food.
It's like
what else did people order out? You're right.
That's all people ate before the advent of delivery apps.
That's insane if you think about it. Wait, no way. Italian pizza, I guess that's pizza. Damn it. Yeah, going back to pizza.
Yeah. And,
Italian or Chinese would be the takeout.
Yeah, interesting.
Wow.
And so I think over time they just built up that instant gratification. And what we're really talking about here is the ability to track your order on Seamless, on Uber Eats, on Postmates, any of those. And I think that's actually harmful for us because it's this manufactured anxiety of all of a sudden having the feeling, not having the feeling, but having the need to know where your food is at all times. Like, have you ever seen people borderline freak out when they're waiting for their food and they're tracking on it and the person stops at an intersection for a little too long?
Yeah.
And you just see this person slowly spin out of control. Why are they stopping? Are they eating my fries? Are they eating my order? And that's manufactured anxiety. That's manufactured by the creators of these apps.
But what about, there's some positive, I agree, and I think the psychological aspect of that is terrible, and I've seen it. I've seen people constantly checking on their phone, what's happening, what's going on. But some of the positives, it's transparency, right? Like, you can track when your food's coming, so you can plan around it. Oh, the guy's 5 minutes away, I can finish my dishes, or I can, put stuff away before he comes, or call the person to come over. There's some positives to being able to track your food, don't you think?
Let me push back on that. I'll challenge that for a second.
Yeah, please.
So can you break up what you're describing, what I'm describing, into 2 distinct parts? One is the estimated time of arrival, which you could still have without having the GPS tracker around this delivery guy's neck.
Good point. You don't need to know exactly where they are on their journey as long as you know it's going to be here at a certain time.
It's a 10-minute window. So right now we have 10:16 through 10:31. That's a 15-minute window.
Right. Okay. So when we think about this tracker, then what is the part that adds anxiety? So it's not really about the arrival time. It's more about the location. Is it just?
I think it's the location.
Interesting.
Right. Because you can wrap your head around. Okay, it'll be here from 10:16 to 10:31.
Which I think is an important and a great feature.
Yeah, a 15-minute window is so much better than you ever have your cable installed, your internet installed?
Yeah.
And they give you a 4-hour window. He's going to be there from noon till 4 p.m. and you have to. you don't even know how to plan around that.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's for sure. The other thing that I would add then is imagine applying this when it comes to the context in the future. And I think Black Mirror explored this a little bit. What about, and people do this actually today now that I know of, tracking your significant other.
Okay.
Do you do that?
I do not.
Okay, I know some people who do this. Where it's like they'll similar, pick up the phone and on the map, on the Google map, their location, their home.
But the significant other knows that they're being tracked.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a little bit different. Yeah.
So it's both. It goes both ways. Yeah. What's your take on that? Like, do you think that also adds a level of anxiety? Because
I would ask why they have that. Like if it's two parents and it's easier to plan, who's picking up the kid, like who's closer by location, then okay, that makes sense. But I'm having a hard time
what
defining
justifies that,
why.
right?
What justifies that?
Because otherwise, it sounds more like lack of trust or something.
Yeah, like I would give the example of I've seen this other freak out where if you're talking to somebody on Telegram,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which I guess is already a little shady.
I forget what Telegram does, like one time message.
Telegram is like WhatsApp, same thing.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think I've used it once. Yeah,
But people use it for like I don't know. People use it for a lot of things,
Like
but
selling?
originally I think it used to be for selling drugs and like because it's encrypted messaging.
Makes sense.
But anyway, not the point. What was the point?
Telegram, something about
Oh,
Telegram.
so when you're on Telegram with somebody, and your phone is running low on battery, it'll show the other person, hey, Spencer's phone is running low on
WhatsApp
battery.
does that too, I thought.
Yeah. And so
Or Citizen, I think does.
one
that.
of them, yeah. And so it's interesting that Citizen would do that. Isn't it a single person app? But
Well, that has a community aspect to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
but and so on Telegram,
see,
it's easy.
notification.
We're both like little slaves walking straight to it.
Yeah.
Feed me.
Yeah, basically.
Feed me dopamine.
Oh, gosh.
But anyways, so I witnessed that where someone is like, oh well, I thought she was home. Why is the battery on? Why is the battery almost dead? What's up with that? And it's just such an unnecessary
Fear,
mistrust or
worry.
distrust. Yeah.
Right, and like it's like it could be for any number of reasons. Had to leave out for the last minute thing. So like it's almost like it almost creates an anxiety too because then as the person who you know is being tracked and you're gonna go off a pattern, you have to kind of explain yourself before you do it, which is kind of like messed up, right? Like I've got let's say I'm home and I have a last minute meeting at like 6 or something or 5 where I had to step out. Or a friend had an emergency, I have to step out. Now I have to call my significant other and explain that first rather than, because otherwise it looks weird that or like not weird, but it's off a regular pattern that it's going to be a discussion. It's weird. I don't know. Yeah. And I think it opens unnecessary, like, variables to add to fights. Right?
Yeah. These are, and I think,
And I think, but I was gonna say, I actually think that'll be the norm at some point. Maybe not the near future, but I think it'll become the norm first with kids and then significant others.
Oh, you mean with tracking your kids at all times?
Yeah. I can easily get tempted to do that. I can see how.
He's not that far.
Let me see. Oh yeah, he's not that far now.
With kids is a very
Let's
interesting.
go to 10 minutes then at least.
Yeah, with kids is a very interesting one too, right? Like parental control. Okay, he's pulling up. I get it.
Should I tell him? Tell him to leave it there, right?
Talk to him. Go inside the building
Hello?
and leave it.
Hello. Yes, you can leave it right there. We'll go pick it up. You can leave it right there.
Downstairs.
Downstairs. Right. You can leave it at the door. Yeah, that's fine. Or inside if the door's open. But we'll pick it up in a moment. Inside? Alright, perfect. Thank you so much. Fine. Done. Cool.
Perfect. Go on.
Well, where was I? What was I saying?
I don't know. Let me try to move this.
It was,
Oh, you sent a photo of it being delivered,
oh, perfect. Good.
and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, me too. Right, it's a comfort.
To that point.
Transparency.
It relieves my anxiety, actually.
Well, and does it relieve the anxiety of your
That they
kids?
manufactured. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And also, by the way, it was kids that we were thinking of.
Kids, yes.
Yeah, that.
Oh yeah, that was my point. Like, have you seen how parental controls on cell phone devices have really changed
Yeah.
over the years?
I have, man. A lot. And all the way from securing them down to to controlling what content, and of course being able to track.
It used to be exactly. It used to be that mom and dad used to not They used to once in a while, like go into the kid's bedroom and look inside their phone, and be like, oh, who are they texting? Like once in a while.
Once in a while.
Yeah. And that was at the time even considered like
A lot, right?
as an intrusion, almost trespassing, right? Like this is my private property kind of thing is what kids would always say.
Yeah.
And now it's almost there's actually two schools of thought on this. One is install all of these parental control tools on your kid's device and don't tell them, and unless it's something dangerous, stay out of it, they won't know. Or have the media plan, responsible cyber aware conversation with your kid, and tell them, we're going to monitor you for your own safety, but when you keep proving yourself and we can trust you, then we'll delete it. So
I think
transparency.
The second one would be the approach that I would prefer to the two.
As a child or as a parent?
As a parent, because you can earn it. But as a child, it's not terrible either, because you're like, oh, I can earn their trust, rather than it being like, if I catch them doing it, I'm feel embarrassed, like a whole lot of things. Just more at risk and just sneakier. Like I think, like telling a kid that you can earn your privacy, or like you can earn it.
That's a good way of putting it. You can earn your privacy.
Like we'll trust you, but like you can earn it, and then like we'll pull back when you break that trust, right? Like it's just like a moving bar, right? So like the more trustworthy you are, the less we'll have to, you have your own privacy. You can do more things. You have more freedom. The moment that we feel like you're crossing a line based on what you shouldn't be doing, then we'll start to monitor again. So it's like, it's up to you what you want to do. We've given you some clear rules and boundaries to have your freedom, as long as you follow within the barriers.
How do you feel about chipping kids?
Oh, that's weird.
But what if chipping kids is what prevented kidnappings?
Yeah, maybe it's just also like I'm not used to it. It might be a norm. If I was born into a world where people did that, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But since I'm not used to it, maybe it's a little bit harder for me to adjust to that thought of like chipping a kid.
How about now, knowing that, like you could protect your child?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, what's weird is that like I would, as a parent, would be in to do all of this, but I know for a fact, me growing up, I'm like, I would find that crazy. Like growing up, like we had. Think about it. I would go. I don't know about you, but I'd go outside on my own and like, show up whenever. Like,
I'd show up in a different city.
Yeah, it would just like, oh, you'll be back in like 2 hours. Yeah, sure. And trust that everything's okay. Not break a leg, an arm, not get kidnapped. Like to me, to imagine that for Ella, like of course she's still a baby, but like I'm like, damn, I can't imagine doing that. I will try to. And maybe it's one of the reasons. To our early conversation, we want to move somewhere where that feels comfortable. Even though I feel comfortable around that here a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a weird thought. But anyway, I know we diverged from the whole...
We're bouncing around a bit.
But we did... But I mean,
but it circles...
to the tracking.
Exactly. It circles back to the manufactured anxiety.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Is it... Well, like, what... To tie to the Ella thing is like, what are the chances of something happening to her? Realistically, they're probably pretty low. Not saying they're not impossible or not. There's no chance that it would happen. It's probably lower than I think. And then when I add the tracking, it just adds more anxiety for me as a parent to be like, oh no, like, well, why is she in this location? Like, the end result's gonna be the same. She's gonna come home and be safe. But in the meantime, I'm like, why is she there? I'm gonna ask her when she gets home. We're gonna argue probably or whatever. Like, why were you in that park for that long? Who's there for what? Why? It just seems unnecessary.
It's interesting to think about it if you think about all of these additional points of data that we never had. Like all of these additional check-ins, let's call them, are that manufactured anxiety. Like for your food, you were perfectly fine just knowing the ETA. Even when you used to call the Chinese food place up, they'd be like, 25, 30 minutes. And you're like, okay, well, they're off 5 minutes, whatever. Right. It gets delivered.
And what about with kids? Come back in 2 hours.
With kids, come back in 2 hours, and you don't have any insight into it. And so you tell your story. The story that you tell yourself is like, okay, I allowed for 2 hours. Out of sight, out of mind is what life really used to be based on. That was like the foundation of most of our framework decisions. And parental control. Okay, those are additional points. That's also manufactured anxiety. I would almost argue that with the advent of the smartphone, where GPS was introduced, that allowed a lot more of these things. But also just like with the phone, if you go all the way back in I want to say back in time, before phones, it would take a really long time for a message to get to you.
Right, yeah.
And then, okay, the home phone was created, and now it's like, oh, okay, hey, Wilma, the farm's on fire. You were able to get that across.
Yeah.
And then you had cell phones in the 90s, or like 80s, I actually want to say, the first cell phones.
Yeah.
Right? Late 80s, early 90s? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
When those came out, all of a sudden everyone had like inputs coming in at all times, like much more rapid than before.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, imagine our bodies, right? Like these meat bags that have essentially been unchanged for a really long time, since we were cavemen.
Yeah.
And compare that with the pace of technology and how that rapidly that changes.
Yeah.
How can those two not clash? How can one keep up
with the other?
With the
well,
other?
I think
and
leave one behind.
And it's interesting. We could talk about that. I have an angle on that. But if you layer those two, and then you think about what's the additional anxiety that is now persistent in our lives that we never had before. What happens to our stress? What happens to the way we behave as a result of those things?
So additional information, it's almost like too much information or additional noise. I don't know if it's noise, but
I think noise is actually in many cases a good word for it. It's like, is it adding value?
Yeah, exactly. Is it just kind of like articles, like people who love to read, and I'm guilty of this, like read a bunch of articles. It's like, or like people that endlessly scroll news, or it's like, what value does that add to you? Like, oh great, now you know like the 10th bad news of the day. Somebody got shot in Philadelphia, or does that add value to you? What do you take to your everyday life from that? Nothing, just the joy that you're not there, like the drama of it. Yeah, but then also makes you more jaded to the world. So yeah, added noise, added information. And I guess that's what that tracker is: added noise, added information. Too much. So the lesson is, here's what I would say to take away before we close out. I think that as we move forward towards the future, unless you have another last
No, go ahead.
As we move into,
we have to go eat this pie.
Yes. As we move further into the future, it'll be a lot noisier. It's not going to get quieter. Or at least it's going to get a lot noisier before it gets quieter. Meaning, media is going to be ubiquitous. It's going to be everywhere. You're going to have it in different platforms, and in your visual cue, you are going to be bombarded in all your senses in the future, and a lot of it is going to be unnecessary and loud and distracting, and have an impact to your mental well-being, and that's just what it is. I mean, so you have to choose. I think a big part of navigating this future of noise is deciding what's important to you, and being aware that you don't need to take in all this information. So even when you're trying to learn something, you'll get. I think there's such thing as like information overload or fatigue, that you're just not. At some point, you're not even retaining the key points. So that's it. I think it's just in the future things are going to get noisy. The tracker is noisy, adds anxiety. You need to be able to navigate that world. That's it.
So it's an age-old question of quantity versus quality.
Yeah, quantity versus quality, but you have to navigate the quantity. It's going to be in your face. You can't just be like, you can't avoid it. So cherry pick.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, this connects well to our last episode
with social media,
where we spoke about people converting over to the dumb phone.
Yeah,
it's really a way of lowering the volume on that noise.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I think that'll still be the minority. I think that'll be a major minority. We'll see. Maybe the kids prove us wrong.
It'd be interesting to see if people just start unplugging.
There could be.
It's like the cool thing to do, right? Like what comes after Generation Z?
Gen Alpha.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, those are gonna be some pretentious people.
Gen Alpha? Yeah. Ella's Gen Alpha.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine being called Alpha.
Gen Alpha.
Your entire life and not growing up to just run shit.
Yeah. Gen Alpha.
Or like feel like you run shit, you know?
Well, we'll see how they are. They may be smarter than Z in some cases. in some ways.
How do you measure smarter?
Well, I always feel like every generation gets a little bit smarter. I'm not saying they work harder or they have tolerance or like emotionally more intelligent, but I think they're smarter in the sense of they have all the past gen learnings. They can be potentially smarter, right? They learn from millennials like us, Gen Z before them, the boomer lessons, the Gen X. Like I think
they have history.
They have history, and they have the scope of being able to look back across across history and say, oh, that worked there, that didn't work, this works best from that time, and then just kind of curate that into their own kind of lifestyle. Like they may say, they can see the mistakes Gen Z made and say, well, that didn't work out, we're not going to do that, but we'll take these aspects of Gen Z that did work and we'll continue to evolve on it.
Yeah,
I think Gen Z did that too about millennials. I think
every generation does that to the previous generation, but I would measure it really in two yardsticks. One is what you said, is they have history, and the other is they'll always have better technology than the previous generation.
Yeah.
So like for us, we have some kind of tech that makes us think a little bit. Like we have computers, right? Mm-hmm. Previous generations didn't have that. In the future, if you have, let's say you have something, you have ChatGPT, you have artificial intelligence, otherwise, and what I think should be known as assistive intelligence, because it's assisting you in completing tasks easier, which makes you seem smarter. Or you're just doing it in a more intelligent, smart way.
More efficient,
yeah. So I think it really is like history, so like hindsight and better tech.
Yeah, better tech, for sure, without a doubt. I think those things...
Imagine you have a chip inside your brain that's just like, you're able to think through thoughts and get answers as soon as you think them. What can you do?
I think that's another topic, but we can go deep into that. I think it has a weird psychological impact. Though. A lot of distrust, I think, would come up too. A lot of not authentic conversations. Imagine just trying to meet somebody, like people who just want to impress that other person, and be like, tell me about in the trip. Tell me about Max Irzek. I've never met him before. Okay, I know exactly what he likes. I know where he works, and I'll just say like, oh, this is like my favorite thing, and then you'll be like, oh, really?
How can I make Max love me?
Yeah.
And it's like, here's an outline of the questions you have to ask.
Essentially, yeah.
So how aggressive do you want to be? Change the dial.
Oof, all of that.
Let's go eat that pie.
We're gonna eat that pie. We'll see you later, and I hope you enjoy this shorter but good and dense episode of In the Future. Talk to you soon.